Hi, this is APS's teacher training video on how to use GoGuardian. GoGuardian is a tool teachers can use during class time to filter and monitor what their students are doing on the internet. This can be used both in the classroom and in a distance learning mode. First step is to go ahead and go to GoGuardian.com and then sign in. All APS teachers should already have a GoGuardian account. If you do not, there is a request form that I will post at the end of the video. When you log into your GoGuardian account, you can either type in your APS username and password and click login, or you can log in with Google. If you log in with Google, you will click your name from the list and log in. When you log into GoGuardian, there's a control panel on the left side here where you can see your classrooms, your scenes, which are your filtering rules, your calendar where you can schedule your classes, student reports where you can see past activity from other sessions, and a help button. In the middle here, you'll see your classes, little tiles of classes. Over here is the Import Google Classroom and Add Classroom button, and at the top is the sign out. All right, so the first thing is to add a class. If you're using Google Classroom, the quickest and easiest way to get a GoGuardian class is to import from Classroom. So when you click on that button, you may have to connect with your Google account. It's going to have you sign in to your APS account again and ask permission to view your Google Classroom. Click Allow, and it will connect you to your Google Classroom account. All right, after you connect, click the Import Google Classroom button again, and then choose which classroom you'd like to import from Google Classroom. It may take a moment for your imported classroom to show up, but once it's done importing, it'll show up here on your class tiles. One thing you'll notice is that at the bottom here, I can tell which classes I've imported from Google and which ones I haven't. This was a hand-created class. To create a class by hand, you click the Add Classroom button. You give your classroom a name, whatever is going to be easiest to remember. You can choose a subject. You can give it a description. You can set a default scene, and I'll come back to those in a second. And you can pick a color so that they're coordinated and you can tell quickly which classroom you're in. Click Add Classroom. The next thing it's going to do is ask you how you want to add students to your GoGuardian classroom. You can have students enroll your class from a link. You can add individual email addresses to your class, or you can upload a CSV file with email addresses. You can get the CSV file from Synergy. This would be the quickest and easiest way to include all of your students. If you email your students a code, some of them may not open their email to see the code. And you can add new students individually by email. When you click on the email button, you'll see there's a space here to import emails. You do have to type in the full email, the 9800, whatever the rest of their email address is. If you click on the enroll code, this is what it looks like. When you do CSV import, you would click or drag your CSV file here. Once you have your classes added, for classes that you hand create, you can actually delete them if you decide you no longer need those classes. For Google imported classes, the only thing you can do is archive them, which then moves them to this button here for all your archived classes. Active classes are here. All right, the next thing you're going to do is create a scene. A scene is a set of filtering rules for your students. To add a new scene, you click the green Add Scene button. Then you're going to give your scene a name. You can have different scenes for different classes. Down here is the important part. You can choose to have your class be in allow mode, which means that all websites will be allowed except for the ones you list here below. Or you can be in block mode. In block mode, it means that all websites will be blocked except for those allowed below. So that's an important distinction. When you're in allow mode, you have to type in all the websites you want to block. You can block YouTube, for example, and it'll validate the email here. You can block anything you want. If you block google.com, it's going to block everything from the Google website. That would include docs, classroom, slides, everything. So that's how allowed mode works. When you're in blocked mode, it's going to block absolutely everything on the internet except for the websites you put here. So now that means my students can go to anything in the Google Suite and YouTube, because those are the only websites I'm allowing them to go to. If you're in blocked mode, students can do an image search on Google, but they can't click on the links to go to those images. They can also do a regular search on Google and see the homepage of all their search items, but they can't actually click on any of the links. So that's how blocked and allow mode works. There's some lists over here you can add quickly. If you want to allow Kahoot, or if you wanted to allow Kami, you can add those to your list quickly by clicking the add list button. Then they show up here on your blocked or allowed list. Tab management. If you want your students to automatically go to a tab when they open their computers when you're in a session, you can type in a website that you want to open on their computers and then click the blue Add Tab button, which is, of course, hiding behind my picture. Maximum open tabs. You can decide as a teacher how many tabs you want them to have open on their Chromebooks at any given time during a session. Be careful, because if you limit it too much, they may not be able to open all the tabs they need. Classroom, a doc for classroom, a story for classroom, right? There's 3 right there. So maybe you want to set the limit to something reasonable. But then they can't open a whole bunch of YouTube tabs and watch a bunch of videos during class. Once you've created all your rules for your scene, you're going to go ahead and click Save Scene. You can always delete a scene later if you decide you don't need it. You can also go into your scene and edit it. You can even change the pattern. All right. Now you can go into the calendar and schedule your sessions, or you can start a session at any time. Let's say you want to schedule your class. You see your first period every day at the same time. So you can choose your class, and then you can choose days of the week. And then let's say first period's from 8 to 9, and you can add another day. So you could literally go in and schedule every single class for the different days of the week. Let's say on Wednesdays are early day, and so it's actually only on 8:30. Okay. So if you have a different schedule, like a block schedule every week, you can actually add that block schedule in here so that it's different for every day of the week. But this way you don't have to go back and think about starting your scene at the beginning of class every day. It would just pop up and start automatically. So I'm going to add this to my calendar. And now I can see that I've got my first period class here. I could then add to calendar and go in and do second period and third period. So you can go in and add all your classes to your calendar. If you just want to start a scene, you go back to classrooms. Then you click on the class that you want to start a scene for, start a session for. And then you're going to click this green Start Session button. You can decide how long your class period is. They're in 15-minute increments. Or you can choose a custom end time if you know exactly when class is over. You can choose which scene to apply. So I just created that first period scene, so I can apply that here. And then I can click Start Session. And now the rules that I've applied to my class will automatically apply for these students. It does take a second for it to load because we are at a distance. When you use this in the classroom and you are in closer proximity, the buttons will pop up much quicker for students. So when you're in your classroom, there's a couple of tabs across the top here. The Screens tab shows me what each of my students is doing currently. I can click on any individual student to expand their view. I can see that the student is on Classroom currently. I can decide if I want to be highlighted when they're off task, or always if it's a student I need to watch, or never if it's a student I don't need to watch. You can click the Exclude Student button, to exclude them from any tabs you push out, any rules that you apply later. So this student is now excluded. Another thing you can do is you can open a new tab for the student. If you click the Open Tab button, you can send them to whatever tab you want to send them to, and then open the tab for them, and that will push the tab out to their Chromebooks. You can lock their device. If you need to lock them so that they aren't opening other tabs, you can give them a message here and then lock their screen, and they won't be allowed to move to any other tabs, open any other tabs, close any tabs. It will lock their computers so that they can only do what you're showing them. You can even take a screenshot. So if you click the screenshot button, it takes a picture of what they're doing currently. So if they're on a website they're not supposed to be, you can take a picture of that to then share with administrators or parents. On the right side here, I've got all their tabs that they have open. You can close any tab that you would like to over here if they're on a website they shouldn't be. You can also change it to the chat tab and then start chatting the student. Right now chat is off, so I can turn chat on, and then I can send them a message. And the messages will show up here. And when they respond, it'll show up here. This chat feature in GoGuardian is separate from Google Chat. So even if they don't have their email or chat open, these messages will pop up on their screen and they will be able to see them. All right, so that's how you use the student screens here. Timelines shows you what your students are doing over the course of a session. So you actually get a little timeline bar for what tabs they have open. The screenshot tab will show you all the screenshots you've taken during a session. At the bottom of each screenshot, you can either download it or save it to your drive so that you can use that screenshot later if you need to for disciplinary issues or to send to parents. The Call Students button has been disabled by the district. Up here, you can turn chat on or off, and then you can receive off-tasks alert. So if students are wandering to other websites, you can receive an alert when the student is off task. Down here in the bottom right corner is another chat button, and you can actually open up your conversations on the side here so that you can view all your student tiles as well as a list of students that you would like to chat with. And you just click the button to close it and go to a different person. All right, if you are done with class before a session ends, then you can end your session now. You can also just wait for the clock to run out. So depending on how you're using GoGuardian, if it's during independent student work time, if it's during Google Meet time, you may want to end your session early or wait until the end of the class period. When you end session, it's going to have you confirm, and then you will get a timeline at the bottom of what happened during your class period as well as the time you were available. Now that you've ended your session, you can go to Student Reports, and you can choose if you would like to look at a report for a student. So you type in the name of the classroom, you type in the student, you can select the date range. It automatically populates with today's date, but if you want to see what that student has done over the last period of time, you can. It's got quick options here if you want to see the last week, 2 weeks, or last month. And then you click Generate Report. Down at the bottom here, you can see the top 5 websites that your student visits, documents they have open, Google searches they do. Interventions, so the number of times you've had to lock the student's screen, number of times you've had to open their tabs, close their tabs, and number of blocked sites that they visited. A list of all the screenshots you've taken of this student over that period of time, and then a detailed browsing history with every single website that they visited. There may be more than one page of websites. There's a next button at the bottom. Unfortunately, GoGuardian has changed the way that they do reports. There is no print button, but you can certainly screenshot any piece of this to send to parents or administrators if you need to. All right, back in the Classrooms button tab, you can click on a class You can view all of the students that are in that class. You can add additional students here by clicking the Add Students button. You can view the recordings that you've taken of that class. You can add teachers to your classroom by clicking the Add Teacher button. You'll search for the teacher by email and then assign a role for them. Once you find the teacher's email, you can choose if you want them to be an owner and have full capabilities over everything in this GoGuardian class, a teacher, which will not allow them to delete the class, but they can start sessions and add sessions, or a helper, which will only allow them to view once a session has been started. And then you add the teacher, and they show up on the list at the bottom. You can also remove teachers if you need to. Under the Settings tab here, you've got your information about your class that you can update. If you click Update Classroom, it'll apply whatever changes you've made. If you need to archive the classroom, you can archive it here. Under Scheduling here, you can also add a schedule, so you can schedule under Calendar or schedule under each individual class here. And under Reporting, this is important. If you want to receive an email at the end of each session from GoGuardian, you need to make sure that the Enable Session Emails report is on. If this is toggled on, then at the end of each session, you'll get a detailed email with every single student's activity. If you need to request a GoGuardian account, please go to https://rebrand.ly/APS GG request. This is the end of the training video on how to use GoGuardian for teachers. Thank you.